gonna blow!
I will not lose the company my husband started 8 weeks after taking it.
Everyone thought the hard part was over. Tommy got out. The company is fresh. The people around him actually make sense this time. And for a brief moment, it genuinely felt like things were finally falling into place. But here's the thing about Taylor Sheridan shows. The moment everything looks clean and promising is exactly when the floor drops out from under you. And right now, every single piece of Landman Season 3 is lined up in a way that doesn't just suggest chaos, promises it. So if you think Season 3 is going to be a smooth ride just because Tommy finally walked away from Tex, you haven't been paying attention. Because what's coming next isn't just conflict. It's a full collapse. And nobody in this story is actually safe. Let's start with what Season 2 actually left us with, because I don't think enough people are sitting with how heavy that ending really was. Tommy didn't just leave a job. He left behind an entire version of himself. Everything he built, every negotiation he survived, every impossible situation he talked his way out of, all of that was tied to Tex. That was his world. Now the first thing worth talking about is the structure of this new company Tommy is building, because the way he's setting it up tells you a lot about who he's become and what he's actually learned from everything that went wrong before. He's not walking into this blind. He's being deliberate. He's surrounding himself with people he knows, people he trusts, and people he believes in even when the situation doesn't fully justify that belief yet. And that last part is really important, because not everyone in this new setup is ready for the role they've been given. Tommy knows that. And he's doing it anyway. That's either the smartest thing he's ever done or the most dangerous, and Season 3 is going to answer that question in a way that's probably going to be painful to watch. Cooper being named president is the decision that stands out the most, and honestly it should. Because if we're being real about it, Cooper has not always shown up the way you'd want someone in that kind of position to show up. There were moments in the earlier seasons where it was painfully obvious that he wasn't ready. Moments where his judgment was off, where he reacted when he should have thought, where the weight of the situation clearly got to him in ways he couldn't hide. And yet here's Tommy putting him at the very top of the structure. Not somewhere comfortable and safe where the pressure is manageable. Right at the top, where every decision matters and every mistake has real consequences. Some people are going to look at that and call it loyalty, but I think it's something more calculated than that. I think Tommy is doing what nobody else ever did for Cooper, which is forcing him into a situation where he has absolutely no choice but to become the person he needs to be. Because comfortable situations don't change people. Pressure does. And Tommy is about to apply a level of pressure to Cooper that we've honestly never seen before. Tommy calling himself vice president in this new setup is interesting because on paper it sounds like he's stepping back. Like he's giving Cooper the spotlight and taking a smaller role for himself. But anyone who has watched this show for more than 5 minutes knows that Tommy Norris does not actually step back. The title might say vice president, but the reality is going to look exactly the same as it always has. He's going to be the one in the room when the hard conversations happen. He's going to be the one making calls that nobody else wants to make. He's going to be right in the middle of everything, negotiating and maneuvering and doing what he does just under a different label. That's just who he is. You can change his title, but you can't change the way he operates. And honestly, that's part of what makes him such a fascinating character to watch. He doesn't need the credit. He just needs to be in the game. Nate handling the financial side of things makes complete sense when you think about it, and having Rebecca come in as COO and Chief Counsel is genuinely one of the most exciting parts of this whole setup. I'll be honest, I love her character. The way she carries herself, the way she thinks, the way she handles situations that would completely unravel most people. She brings something to this show that very few characters actually manage to bring. And the fact that she's now going to be operating at the center of this new company with real authority and real responsibility is something I am very much here for. She's not just a supporting presence anymore. She's going to be right in the thick of it. And with Boss Dale and Thomas handling the operational side, the team actually looks solid on paper. Like this could work. Like they've actually thought this through and put the right people in the right places. And that's exactly what makes it so unsettling. Because in a Taylor Sheridan show, things that look solid on paper have a way of turning into disasters in practice. Ariana working at the office is another detail that deserves more attention than people are giving it right now. Because the easy choice would have been to keep her at home, keep her out of the picture, keep her in a role that felt safe and uncomplicated. And instead the show is choosing to bring her in. to make her part of the daily reality of this new chapter, rather than something separate from it. That's a meaningful creative decision. It puts her right in the middle of everything Cooper is dealing with, which means whatever happens to him professionally is going to hit her directly too. And whatever happens to her personally is going to affect his ability to focus on everything else he's trying to hold together. Their lives are fully connected now in a way that creates a very specific kind of vulnerability. And vulnerability in this show is basically an open invitation for things to go wrong. Now let's talk about Cammy, because I genuinely think she might be the most important and most unpredictable character going into season 3. And I don't mean that as a compliment exactly. I mean that in the way where you can feel the story building towards something with her, and you're not entirely sure whether it's going to be tragic or explosive or both at the same time. After everything that happened with Monty, holding on to Mtex became about way more than just running a company. It became about identity, about control, about proving something to herself and to everyone watching her. She didn't want to be seen as someone who inherited a position and then just sat in it. She wanted to earn what she had. She wanted to be taken seriously on her own terms. And there's something genuinely sympathetic about that, even if the way she goes about it isn't always easy to watch. But here's where things get really complicated. Because right now Cammy is more isolated than she has ever been. Tommy is gone, and that matters more than it might seem on the surface, because Tommy was always a kind of anchor in her world, even when their relationship was tense and difficult. Nate refused to step into Tommy's old role, which means that avenue is closed. And Galeno made it crystal clear that his loyalty was never really to Mtex as an institution. It was to Tommy as a person. So when Tommy left, Galeno's investment in the whole situation basically left with him. That's not just a business problem for Cammy. That's a fundamental shift in the landscape she's been operating in. And it leaves her standing in a position where the usual supports are gone, and she has to figure out what she's actually going to do with what's left. The two directions her story could go are both fascinating in completely different ways. The first option is the rational one. She looks at the situation honestly, accepts that Mtex is no longer what it was and probably can't be what she needs it to be, and she finds a way out. Maybe she even turns to Tommy for guidance, which would be a wild dynamic to watch given everything that happened between them. That path makes sense from a logical standpoint, but it also requires her to let go of everything she's been holding onto. And letting go has never been Cammy's strong suit. The second option is the one that honestly keeps me up at night when I think about where this show is going. If she decides to fight instead of step back, if she digs in and tries to protect what she has by any means necessary, she stops being a complicated figure in the background and becomes a direct threat to Tommy's new company. And if that happens, things are going to get ugly in a way that the show hasn't quite reached yet. Because Cammy with nothing to lose and everything to prove is a completely different version of Cammy than anything we've seen before. And I am not sure anyone around her is actually prepared for what that looks like. Cooper's situation going into season 3 is one where the surface tells a very different story from what's happening underneath. On paper, he's fine. Legally, the situation with Ariana's attacker got resolved, and he came out the other side without facing any real consequences in the eyes of the law. But the reason those detectives pushed so hard during the investigation tells you that this isn't actually over. That man had influence. Real influence. The kind that doesn't just disappear because a legal case gets closed. The people connected to him, the people who cared about what happened to him and what happened as a result of that situation, they were not satisfied with how things played out. And people like that don't just accept an outcome they're unhappy with and move on. They wait. They find different angles. And instead of coming at Cooper through the legal system, which clearly didn't work the way they wanted it to, whatever comes next is going to be something far less predictable and far more dangerous. What makes this even harder to watch is the fact that for the first time in what feels like forever, things are actually going well for Cooper on a personal level. His relationship with Ariana feels genuinely stable. There's a warmth there that the show doesn't always let its characters have, and it feels earned in a way that makes you actually root for them. And the way things are moving, a wedding starts to feel like a natural next step. Like the story is building towards something that should feel celebratory and hopeful. But I cannot shake the feeling that something is going to shatter that. Because this show does not let its characters have good things without making them pay for it. And the more stable and happy Cooper looks going into season 3, the more convinced I am that something awful is being set up right around the corner. I genuinely hope I'm wrong about this, But I don't think I am. Ainsley's storyline is one that I think a lot of people have been sleeping on, and I really believe that's a mistake. Because the version of Ainsley we're going to see in Season 3 is not the same character we've been watching up to this point. Moving out, going to college, choosing to put real distance between herself and the family environment she grew up in, that's not a small thing. Especially for someone like her, who has always been so tightly wound up in the dynamics of her family, particularly her relationship with her mother. Being physically removed from all of that, being in a new environment where nobody has a preset idea of who she is or what she's supposed to be, gives her something she's genuinely never had before. Space. Room to figure out what she actually thinks and feels and wants when it's not being shaped by the people around her. And here's what I keep coming back to when I think about Ainsley. There has always been more to her than the show has been able to fully explore because of where she was placed in the story. She's been the spoiled daughter. The difficult one. The one who reacts badly and says the wrong thing and doesn't fully understand the world she's living in. And all of that is true. But it's not the whole picture. There's intelligence there. There's sensitivity underneath the difficult surface. And when you take a character like that and put them in an environment that actually challenges them in real ways, something interesting starts to happen. She's going to start growing in ways that are going to completely change how we see her. I'm genuinely excited about where her arc goes, because I think she has the potential to become one of the most surprising characters of the entire season. Now let's get into the production side of things because there is actually some really exciting news here that changes the timeline significantly. Season 3 is moving faster than anyone expected. The director Stephen Kay recently revealed that the production team is working at a pace that's genuinely ahead of schedule, and the way they're doing it is interesting. New episodes are actually being edited at the same time that the production team is still out there filming them. That kind of overlapping workflow is not the standard approach, and it's not something you do unless you're really confident in what you're making and really motivated to get it out. What that means for us as viewers is that instead of sitting through a long wait, Season 3 is looking like it could actually land as early as November 2026. Which honestly feels sooner than anyone would have predicted given how these things usually go. And that accelerated timeline matters beyond just the release date, because it tells you something about the energy around this season. When a production team is moving that fast and pushing that hard, it usually means there's something they're excited about. Something they feel good about delivering. And given everything we know about where the story is going with Tommy's new company, with Cammy's isolation, with Cooper's hidden danger, with Ainsley's transformation, there is a lot of story to be told this season. A lot of threads that have been building for a long time and are finally ready to pay off in ways that are going to hit hard.